Well, hello there! I'm Tatiana Volk, the GM Witch, and today we're going to be talking about perception checks. What are they, and what are some of the different ways you can include them in your game? First off, let's mention that not all of these ideas will work for you and your group. There are many different factors that will affect whether or not these things will work for you. But hopefully you will be able to use some of these ideas in your own games or come up with your own ideas based off of them. Now, perception is your character's awareness of the things around them. In real life, we have some people who notice the tiniest of things way off in the distance, while others miss huge, obvious things unless they hit them right in the face. Now, in game, this can be people sneaking around, treasure peeking out beneath rubbles, traps waiting to be sprung, etc. There's all kinds of things that this can include. And we usually determine a character's awareness by making them roll a perception check. Did they notice the villain sneaking off into the distance, or the alarm wire tripped up by the horses in the front of the group? Often, as a game master, we include various situations that the players can discover with a high perception roll. But what happens when they fail? Now, in reality, when you fail to notice something, you're ignorant to the failure. But when playing a tabletop RPG like Dungeons & Dragons, the act of rolling tells the players that there is something up and completely removes the ignorance factor. In some cases, it will cause the players to try different skills to uncover the thing that they had missed after missing it. Or it causes them to act more cautiously than they would have otherwise. So how can we negate this? Before we get started, I wanted to stress my feelings about how important it is that things necessary to moving the story along are not left to the chance of dice rolls. If your players need specific information to move forward, don't put it at risk of a failed roll which can easily block the game altogether. Just give them that information. Now that we got all of that out of the way, let's get on to the different ideas for using perception checks in your games. One option would be to include mundane encounters every so often while asking for perception checks. The players notice a butterfly fluttering above them in the sunlight, or a hummingbird drinking nectar beside the road. The idea is to simply train the players that not all perception checks are dire and important while providing fun flavor text that adds to the aliveness of the world. This is useful if your players are new to the game and you want to show them different kinds of things they can uncover with a die roll. Or if your players really like the flavor text included in different situations, if they tend to blow through sessions without spending too much time on unnecessary things, or if they simply enjoy having an excuse to roll their dice. But if it's overdone, it can quickly become a waste of time and runs the risk of slowing the game down. This also shouldn't be used instead of giving descriptive text to players. It should be a bonus way to give descriptive text to players. So please keep that in mind if you decide to use this option. Another option would be to only ask for perception checks in situations where the results will lead to an instant and obvious outcome. If you use this method, then I suggest you give descriptive clues that the players can use to determine whether or not they investigate or search for traps or whatever the case may be. In the case of a trap, if a player doesn't investigate the uneven rocks that you described lining the cavern floor, they roll for perception when they're about to set off a trap. If they succeed, they notice the trap and avoid setting it off. But if they fail, the trap instantly triggers. The benefit of this option is that you don't waste your time on unnecessary flavor text if your players don't like it. A failed roll will not lead to metagaming players trying to think of other ways to notice that thing they hadn't noticed, and it doesn't eliminate die roll from players who love having reasons to roll die. But this method can be frustrating for new players who are still getting used to the game and mechanics. And it can lead to overly cautious players who either request to roll for perception or investigate at every corner. It also requires the game master to be good at describing a scene and giving clues or hints for the players to follow. Now, you can also have the game master roll perception checks or rely heavily on passive perception to determine if something goes unnoticed. This is speedy, and it leaves the players completely unaware of anything they may have missed because they will not be involved in the die rolling. Admittedly though, this is my least favorite of the options because it takes the joy of rolling from the players along with their control in being the ones who rolled the dice. Lastly, you can have the players roll 1 to 5 perception rolls at the beginning of the session and write it down for later when and or if needed. I like this option for initiative and personally might give it a shot for perception as well. If you make it a beginning of session habit, it can really speed up the overall gameplay by not needing to stop in the middle of intense moments to have the players roll for perception or initiative. Granted, the act of rolling dice can sometimes add to that intensity of a moment. Now, I'm sure there are many other ways you can handle perception in your games, and I would love to hear your methods down below in the comment section. But please be respectful of other people's methods and remember that something that works for you might not work for someone else, and vice versa. Hopefully, we can all share some interesting and useful tips with each other that we can use in our own games. If you found this video to be helpful, please thumbs up and share the video. And if you'd like to see more content like this, consider subscribing to the channel or checking out my Discord, Twitter, or Instagram where I post regular updates. I currently post every Tuesday, so be sure to check back. Anyway, until next time, bye!